Hello everybody, welcome to another edition of What's Going On. I'm your host, Tom D'Ambra. As always, folks, we're very thankful you take the time from your busy day to join us. A lot going on in the world since we had the opportunity to broadcast. I apologize to our viewers. Life got a little hectic for me. In the last 2 weeks, we've had to produce reruns for you, and my apologies for that. We don't like to do that, but for those of you, we have a lot of new viewers literally every week, so we're hoping that some of the new viewers enjoyed the information, found it interesting enough to go on and do more research, and for the folks that have been watching, hopefully it was a good review for you. There is a tremendous amount of under-the-table dealings going on in the world that are going to affect every individual of the world in the very near future, I believe. This is not about speculation, just using history as a barometer as to where we are. And my friends, what I'm talking about is that the United States government, the insolvent corporation that is answering to the creditor, which are the international bankers, we have been throughout the world, the Middle East, Central America, Northern Africa, with our agent provocateurs, creating anarchy, creating a void of structured government, creating violence and terrorism. And remember the slogan of the New World Order, my friends. Order from chaos, and that's exactly what they do. You know, we have proven to you over and over and over again through multiple sources, including statements from congressmen and senators, that the United States is actually the founder, which we are, and the funder, which we are, and the transporter, which we are, and they're taking their orders, they being Al-Qaeda, from the United States government. Do you remember some years ago we read to you how we actually moved Al-Qaeda out of Afghanistan and into Pakistan on C-5A and C-141 military aircraft, United States military aircraft? Read that to you verbatim. So, my friends, now they have conquered what they've wanted to do. Now they are in the underbelly, and literally, geographically, and politically in the underbelly of Russia. And this, my friends, is an extremely dangerous situation. And you have to ask yourself exactly what is our goal here? And I don't mean we as in the people of the United States, because first of all, as a nation of people, we are very ignorant of the actual truth, of the actual motivations and the mechanics of what's going on with what you think is our benevolent government. But here's what's going on, my friends. Just as in other wars, as a teacher of mine once said to me, if you remember this class for anything, and it was a 2-week class, Sherman Webster was his name, he said to me, remember that all war is a settlement of debt. And that's exactly what's going on here, my friends, on the other side of the debt instrument. And the debt instrument that I am speaking of is what you call a dollar. Now, if you've been watching this program, you are very much aware that we do not have dollars. Do you remember we took out our Black's Law Dictionary? We read to you verbatim from Black's Fourth what money was. And money does not encompass debt. And then we went in our Black's Law Dictionary and we looked up the word note. And what is a note? A note is an acknowledgement of debt. What is the Federal Reserve? The Federal Reserve is a private, foreign, for-profit banking corporation. You can go to Dun & Bradstreet and you can look this up. Better yet, my friends, go to your phone book and look up Federal Reserve. You will not find it in the government listings. You will find it right next to Federal Express, which is a for-profit corporation. So, why are we putting this pressure on the Russians? First of all, you have to understand that the authorities, if you would, of the United States government are nothing but yes men to the international bankers. And my friends, it's very simple. Just think of this on your end of things, okay, at our level. If you're the creditor and I'm the debtor, and understand the relationship of the United States insolvent government to the relationship of the creditor, which is the private for-profit banking corporation, the Federal Reserve. The creditor has a superior position to the debtor. And this is why, my friends, it says Federal Reserve note. This is actually script from a private corporation. And this is why there's two signatories on that instrument. One's the creditor, one's the debtor. Do you understand what I'm saying to you? There is no gold or silver backing. There is no intrinsic value backing the mechanisms of the dollar. There's no gold. There's no silver. There's nothing. The only thing there is your ignorance as a nation that this is what we're using for a medium of exchange. And the other thing is that the facade of faith that this is worth something, and we continue to use it as a medium of exchange. Of course, the big thing is, as Lincoln learned, and I'm talking about Abraham Lincoln, when he issued greenbacks, the bankers fought it all the way. So what Abraham Lincoln did was, he made it the only thing payable for taxes. Now, mind you, the taxes were nowhere near where they are today. Besides the Morrill Act, which is one of the reasons why the South went to war, which was to make them go to war, and we've gotten into that before, and unfortunately I don't have the time to do a review on that. But Lincoln made what came to be known as greenbacks, okay? He said this is the only thing that we're going to be allowed to satisfy tax obligations. The bankers had lost control. The bankers took care of that problem by assassinating Abraham Lincoln, and we did a whole show on that. We did a whole show on 2 assassinations of presidents, and both for the same reason, by the same people, even there was a spectrum of time, which is roughly about 100 years, about a century, because this battle, my friends, goes back for thousands of years. When you look at the writings and teachings of Jesus Christ, the only time Jesus actually got mad and angry and showed anger, emotion like that, was when he threw the money changers out of the temple. So this battle that we're in the underbelly is for the survival of this facade note that you think has intrinsic value. And now our tax system, of course, as you know from watching this program, the average American right now is paying about 62% total in taxes, fees, and levies into their daily lives. Because, my friends, when you buy a barrel of gasoline, you're paying a lot of taxes. A quart of oil, you're paying a lot of taxes, tires. And I really don't have a problem with that, and I'll tell you why. Because those taxes go to the maintenance and development of our road systems. I don't have a problem with that. Do I think it needs to be taken back, cleaned up, and do a complete audit and assessment on this system? Because I believe there's a lot of corruption within that, absolutely. But at the face of it, I understand and I agree with, and it's constitutional and lawful, not legal, I'm talking lawful, big difference. That these are called road uses taxes. You use the road, obviously you should pay into the maintenance of them roads. But when we talk about things like our income tax and so forth, our income tax doesn't go to those operations that you think. Do you remember we read the Grace Committee to you some years ago? And the Grace Committee, which was appointed by Ronald Reagan, to find out, hey, we have all this revenue coming in from the government, to the government from the people. Well, where is this money going? Well, much to the behest of the American people, of course this wasn't put on the mainstream media, The Grace Committee found out that not one nickel, to use their words, not one nickel of the American people's income tax goes to the operations of the government. It all goes to an organization known as the International Monetary Fund. And my friends, when you get to the top of this pyramid of banking institutions, Federal Reserve, World Bank, International Monetary Fund, which is located in Basel, Switzerland, you find out that's where your income tax money goes to. And if you want to dig a little deeper, you find out that that really is who owns your land. And when you go a little deeper, you will find out that is where the bond that is issued against you with your birth certificate goes. So why are we, and I'm doing a big loop here, I understand, but please stay with me, my friends. Why are we in the underbelly of Russia? And it comes down to the whole thing that we're going to touch on a little bit here after I cover some news about what you may not have heard about, unless you've been watching this program and others like it, about the Shanghai Agreement that was signed last May. Now, I remind you that it only took about 120 days to the Shanghai Agreement to go into effect and for the Chinese yuan to surpass the euro as the second most used medium of exchange in the entire world. Literally, it was that quick. So, with that Shanghai Agreement, and we have the IMF that's in a panic with the Federal Reserve, all these big bankers. You know all the top funds that you people gave out to the bankers without even asking a question? All $23.4 trillion of it? Well, they're in a little bit of a panic. Because of the Shanghai Agreement and the prominence of industry China, which the bankers set up themselves, they have gone outside the control mechanisms, outside the arena of the international bankers that control our lives, and they have come up with a thing that's becoming to be known as B.R.I.C.S. And that's Brazil, that's Russia, that's India, that's China, and South America, who have all gotten together, and they are putting pressure on the International Monetary Fund. Now, my friends, please remember the reason why we went into some of these countries that we have was, number one, for natural resources, flat out, but number two, and the most prominent in some of them like Libya and Iraq, was the fact that in Libya, Gaddafi said, I am no longer going to accept American dollars for my oil. I'm going to accept gold, I'm going to accept silver, and I'm going to accept the Chinese yuan. In Hussein's case in Iraq, he said, I am still going to accept American dollars, although on a lower percentage, but I am also going to develop a currency that he was going to take the name dinar and base it on the value of a barrel of oil. Well, think of that, my friends. You may say, well, what's that worth? I'm going to tell you what it's worth. Right now, it's worth about $103 American. What's that dollar worth? It's worth your sweat equity debt for your lifetime and your children's lifetime and their children's lifetime. You understand what I'm trying to say to you, my friends? One currency was going to be backed by an intrinsic value. Yes, it was a barrel of oil, but the barrel of oil is real. It's tangible. The dollar, which you call a dollar, which is not a dollar, because if you've been watching this program, you understand that by the coinage acts of our country, not the corporation, the country, that a dollar was 25.8 grains of gold and a 15-to-1 ratio of silver. And if you understand the Constitution, you understand that the Congress was to have control of our money system, the Congress was to issue the issuance and the value thereof, and all species must be in gold and silver. Where has that gone? What happened to Congress? My friends, Congress is nothing more now. They really have no effect. What was that Obama said? Or Barry Soetoro, whatever name you want to use. He goes by both. He said, I have a pen and I have a phone. And to use his words, I have a pen and I have a phone, and I will bypass legislative processes to get done what I feel needs to be done. Well, who are you? You're a dictator. You're a dictator. Folks, what happened to our legislative process? What happened to our representative process? Do you really think these people in Washington, D.C. are looking out for the good of our nation? NAFTA, CAFTA, GATT, Operation Paperclip, Northwoods. I mean, come on, are they really looking out for the American people? They don't even meet up to their responsibilities by the document that the responsibilities are laid out for them in the articles. It's laid out right there, my friends, what the government can do, what they can't do. My friends, the Constitution and the Bill of Rights are not to tell you what you can do. The Constitution does not give you rights. Your rights are unalienable. They are not unalienable from Mars. They're unalienable from God. But as they have taken God out of our society, out of the very fabric of our society, because they don't want anything superior to the state. The state is God. And while they do this, you turn to them because now we have civil rights. Civil rights are not rights, my friends. Civil rights are merely privileges. I don't claim civil rights. I know my rights. I know my contract with this insolvent corporation called the United States government. They have sworn allegiance to it. So, again, 360, why are we in the underbelly of Russia? Why is Putin reacting the way he is? We're going to get into that in just a second. First, I would like to get into some news that you probably have not heard of. I found some of this, all of it actually rather interesting. China begins openly using drones to spray chemicals. Now, for those of you who look up in the sky from time to time and you see these big chemtrails. Now you have contrails where the aircraft is blowing out exhaust and that dissipates after a while. Then you have things called chemtrails, which we have covered on this program. We have showed you documentaries on it. We have gotten quotes from scientists, from people who are involved with it. We've gotten the, we actually had one show when we talked about chemtrails, and we showed you the patents for the sprayers, the patents that were in the fuel additives, the patents for the bariums and all these things that they were spraying out. And we also got you, my friends, the Congress, when they put a vote on it, and back in 1998, 97, to actually stop it. Oh, and by the way, that got voted down, but by putting the bill forward, it was an acknowledgement they're doing it. So China now is using drones to spray these chemicals. And of course, they just talk about, well, it disperses fog and smog by releasing a chemical catalyst. Oh, I see. We're doing it because of global warming, ha ha ha. Hey, how's that global warming working out for you, people? You had enough shoveling? You had enough 38 below zero? Oh, I know, that's right. This is because of global warming. The ice packs are melting and it's making everything colder. You know, fourth graders can see through that. Of course, fourth grade reading level today is what? Oh, that's called a high school graduate. Obama NSA nominee defends mass surveillance of Americans. The president reforms of the NSA continue apace as he picks to become the new head of the agency today. The new head of the agency defended mass spying on Americans, saying it is necessary to prevent terrorist attacks. You mean the ones that were put together in 9/11, in Waco, all these other ones, the World Trade Center in the early 90s by rogue elements of the government, that one? 7/7 London, Madrid. That one, is that them the terrorist attacks you're talking about? Responding to questions from Senators, Vice Admiral Michael Rogers stated that it is imperative that the NSA have access to vast amounts of metadata in order that the government can keep Americans safe. You see, my friends, we're spying on you, we're recording you, we're taxing you, we're poisoning you, we're observing you, we're recording you for your own good. We're benevolent. We're benevolent. We're doing we're poisoning you with SV40 in your vaccinations. We're poisoning you with fluoride in your water. We're poisoning you with GMO food. But this is all for your own good. Rogers argued that Section 215 of the Patriot Act, what a beautiful word for spying on you. It's patriotic. Should remain intact. And it should not be hindered from using it to justify current mass surveillance, particularly the telephone media data program under Section 215, which is designed to map the communications of terrorists so we can see who they may be in contact with as quickly as possible. I believe that we need to maintain the ability to make queries of phone records and communications in a way that is agile and provides results in our timely fashion. Being able to quickly review phone connections associated with terrorists to assess whether a network exists is critical, said Mr. Rogers. Well, my friends, if you remember, we brought out to you the graph printed from the Department of Homeland Security's website itself. We scanned it, we put it out to you. Do you remember who the #1 terrorist threat to the United States government was? Do you remember? I know a lot of you found this very disbelieving. It was returning veterans. Veterans are the #1 terrorist threat to this insolvent corporation. Who else was on that list, my friends? Homeschoolers, constitutionalists. Now, how's that work out? The very document that these people have sworn to uphold, and those who are constitutionalists, like myself, the people behind the camera, and many of you who view this program, we're the threat. We are the threat, as Hillary Clinton said at the CFR, the Council on Foreign Relations. And if you don't know who the Council on Foreign Relations is, two thoughts. One, you really need to watch this program more often. And number two, you need to get on the internet and do research and punch in Council on Foreign Relations. Excuse me, you will see who they are. They were developed by international bankers in the 20s, and I've done a whole show on them also. But the Council on Foreign Relations is I would call it a silent, it's sort of public now because they actually used to deny it. Even the guy, what's his name, Rush Limbaugh, I think with one arm behind my back and all that. Well, he denied this Council on Foreign Relations even existed for about 10 years. But through shows like this and through major media shows that others, that, you know what, it came out that, you know what, there really is a Council on Foreign Relations. And you know what, they really do control our media. And you know what? They really do get together and get their marching orders from another superior group called the Bilderberg Group, which meets every year secretly. This really happens. So it's rather interesting that this nominee, Mr. Rogers, is like not saying, hey, this is unconstitutional. No. We got to watch you. We got to watch you. You're the terrorists, friends. We are the terrorists. Folks, when I look at the 11 categories of what makes up a terrorist by the Department of Homeland Security, I qualify for 8 of them. And the only reason why I do not qualify for 9 is because I do not have children, for I would homeschool my children. That's right, my friends. Homeschoolers are on the list of terrorists. So Mr. Obama has another nominee here. Obama's Surgeon General pick. And this is his statement. Guns are a public health issue. Dr., and I may butcher his name, I don't even care, except for I want you to be able to research this. Dr. Vivek Halgari Murthy, the man Obama wants to be the next Surgeon General, is a rabid anti-Second Amendment ideologue who believes firearms ownership is a public health issue. Murthy is the president and co-founder of Doctors for America, an organization that melds healthcare and support for gun control legislation. Doctors for America demands further erosion of the constitutional right to own a firearm, including a stronger gun laws, making sure doctors can console patients about gun safety. Oh, that's what I want to do. Folks, I want to go to my doctor for gun safety. Well, why not, my friends? You're going to the IRS with Obamacare for your health care. Hell, you might as well use your doctor for gun safety. The IRS is going to take care of your health care. So why not go to your doctor for gun safety? Makes perfect sense to me. Doesn't it make sense to you? And tracking data on all gun-related deaths, injuries, just like any other public health issue. Well, you know, my friends, I'm probably not going to have time, but I brought along some of them statistics, and you would be shocked. Shocked. Exactly what the statistics prove. I think we did a whole show on that some time ago, right after Sandy Hook. Firearms, according to the organization, are a plague threatening our society. For a few other issues, we would tolerate this state of affairs. If tens of thousands of Americans died every year of infectious disease and there would be and there was no policy response, there would be a public outcry. If research clearly demonstrated that there were made simple solutions to prevent all these deaths and still nothing changed, public health experts would be furious. It is time for us to recognize that we must take action to save thousands of lives and demand change from our politicians. My friends, listen to these words. First of all, his numbers are complete facade. Complete facade. There are not tens of thousands of Americans who die every year from guns. But there are tens of thousands of Americans who are saved every year from guns and their property. It calls for doctors to interrogate patients. This is their own words, my friends. I'm reading this verbatim. It calls for doctors to interrogate patients, including minors, about guns in the home. And if the patient admits a family member exercises his or her constitutional right to own firearms, then the organization wants to, quote unquote, counsel them appropriately about guns. Recently, Doctors for America circulated a petition calling for action against the Second Amendment. A letter was sent to Congress last January, called for the elimination of all military-style guns and ammunition, in other words, all semi-automatic weapons with high-capacity magazines, which, by the way, is over 10 rounds, and a tax-funded payer buyback programs. How do you like that? So now we're going to the IRS for our health care, and we're going to our doctors for guns, gun information. And I'll tell you, my friends, we talked about this some time ago, about the Veterans Administration going to use, if you walk into the Veterans Administration and they ask everybody, are you depressed at times? And you say, yes, guess what? You put on a list and you're going to lose your guns. I personally know people who have. These are veterans, my friends. These are veterans who risked life and limb to keep what they believed was a loyal, honorable cause, and that was defending your rights. And now this very same organizations are trying to make them into patients. So it's a mental health issue affecting the public health. Again, we have to disarm you for benevolent reasons. The primary policy goals of Dr. Murthy's organization have been focused on advancing the stricter gun control laws found in the Affordable Care Act, recently said Kentucky Senator Rand Paul. Oh, my friends, I will tell you. I will tell you on a lighter note, though, on a more positive note, I was very, very happy to see the turnout for the pro-gun rally at the State House this past weekend. Over 850 people showed up on a very short notice. You know, and to a lot of you, you may say, what's 850 people? My friends, that's over 1% of the entire population of the state of Vermont. And that was all done in a very short notice on a very cold and windy day. And nobody left early. Okay, let's continue. This was a poem written by a 14-year-old boy that number one, oh, by the way, this young fella is homeschooled, but the wisdom that this 14-year-old brings forth to me is incredible. And what he asks you to do is he asks you to read the poem from top to bottom. And then he asks you to read it in reverse order. And I want you to listen to the wisdom on both ends, because you're not going to believe how this is going to change by reading it in reverse, and the difference in the mindset that this young 14-year-old lad is portraying to you. The name of it is Our Generation, and it was written by Jordan Nichols, and I'm sorry to say they did not give what state this young fellow was from. And this is the poem, and I'm going to read it to you from top to bottom, and then I'm going to read it to you in reverse order. Our generation. The poem goes as follows. Our generation will be known for nothing. Never will anybody say we were the peak of mankind. That is wrong. The truth is our generation was a failure. Thinking we actually succeeded is a waste. And we know living only for money and power is the way to go. Being loving, respectful, and kind is a dumb thing to do. Forgetting about that time will not be easy, but we will try. Changing our world for the better is something we never did. Giving up was how we handled our problems. Working hard was a joke. We knew that people thought we couldn't come back. Oh, what a plot twist. I'm sorry, my apologies. Let me go back to again. People thought we would not come back. That might be true unless we turn things around. Okay, I think you can see from here when you're reading this right now that he's giving up. He's reflecting on his generation. He's reflecting on the state. This is a 14-year-old reflecting on the state of the country and the world for that matter. And he sees apathy. He sees ignorance. He sees desperation where there's no energy. There's no desire to get active, to obtain knowledge, to seek the truth and find out what's going on and to act upon that truth. That's from top to bottom. Now I want you to listen to this from the bottom to the top. Unless we turn things around, that might be true. People thought we couldn't come back. We knew that was a joke. Working hard was how we handled our problems. Giving up is something we never did. Will not be easy, but we will try. Forgetting about that time is a dumb thing to do. Being loving, respectful, and kind is the way to go. Living only for money and power is a waste, and we know. We actually succeeded thinking that. Our generation was a failure. That is wrong. The truth is, we were the peak of mankind. Never will anybody say our generation will be known for nothing. Isn't that phenomenal? This is a 14-year-old young lad. When I read this, I had to keep this. I had to share it with you. I thought it was just fantastic, and I will be keeping that for my own personal records. Okay, we're a little over halfway. So I want to read a quote from you, my friends, and I cannot promote anything on this program but knowledge and but truth, but I want to show you a book that is a must-read if you really want to get an understanding of the who's, the what's, the whys, and the wheres behind the Federal Reserve. And there's two books that I've recommended in the past. One of them is The Creature of Jekyll Island by G. Edward Griffith, and we've had that book on this program many times. And the other one I brought with me today, and it's called A Study of the Federal Reserve and Its Secrets. And this was done by a phenomenal researcher called Eustace Mullins. Unfortunately, Mr. Mullins passed away last year, but he was paid by the famous poet Ezra Pound, and basically Mr. Pound said to him that he was very suspicious of the Federal Reserve Act, and he sent Mr. Mullins to the Congressional Record, to the Congressional Library, all these avenues, and it took him 3.5 years of research to put this book together. And anyway, I like to read this book. I've probably read it, I don't know, I want to say 6 to 8 to 12 times. I really don't know how many times. But you know, when I was looking at how we're in the underbelly of Russia, which is taking us back to where we started, I thought about a quote from President Woodrow Wilson, and I wanted to find it. And so here we are. I have found the quote, okay? And this is what I want to read to you. Now, this is President Woodrow Wilson from the Congressional Record, actually on the being asked questions about the Federal Reserve System, okay? As fiscal agents of the government, the Federal Reserve Banks rendered the nation services of incalculable value after our entrance into the war. They aided greatly in the conservation of our gold resources, in the regulation of our foreign exchanges, and in the centralization and efficient utilization of our financial energies. One shudders when he thinks that might have happened if the war had found us without the former decentralized and antiquated banking system. Mr. Cummings shudders are wasted. If we had kept our antiquated banking system, we would never have been able to finance the Allies or enter the war. Listen to what he's saying. He's not saying, thank God that we got this new Federal Reserve System so we could confiscate the wealth of the nation and put it into the mechanisms of war. He's applauding that. He's saying, thank God we don't have the old decentralized independent sovereign banks and an antiquated banking system, because the mechanisms would not have been there, my friends. You got to think of the politician here. They would not have been here to, quote unquote, conserve the gold reserves and the regulation of foreign exchanges. Are you understanding what he's telling you? Woodrow Wilson did not believe Woodrow Wilson himself did not believe in his crusade to save the world for democracy during World War I. For he writes, the World War, understand, the World War, there wasn't a World War II yet, the, singular, number one, the World War was a matter of economic rivalry. This is the President of the United States who signed the Federal Reserve Act, even though it was put in on December 23rd, 1913, while the Congress was away for the Christmas holiday. But listen to his words. We would not have been able to. We didn't have the mechanisms, the abilities to confiscate your wealth and to send you to war. Thankfully, we were able to do this. And do you think this was for a cause for peace of the world? No. What does Mr. Wilson say? The World War was a matter of economic rivalry. Remember them words, my friends, because as the saying goes, nothing is new, excuse me, under the sun. This underbelly of Russia that we are in is because of economic rivalry. And that rivalry, my friends, is what we were just talking about. The globalist establishment and the Obama administration are pushing hard for a series of controversial... Now, my friends, this is by Alex Newman. And if you don't know who Alex Newman is, I invite you to look him up. Very, very interesting, very well-researched fella. And let me read his article. Excuse me. The globalist establishment and the Obama administration are pushing hard for a series of controversial reforms aimed at massively expanding the power and resources of the International Monetary Fund while further scaling back U.S. influence at the institution. Excuse me? The Obama administration and globalist establishments are trying to what? This is where all your income tax money goes, folks. This is who owns your land. This is who pays off your politicians and gives orders to the people you think are representing you. And they want what? They want to expand the power of this organization and diminish the influence of the United States within it? Using various pretexts, and especially the crisis in Ukraine, the government are threatening to proceed with the radical plot to empower the IMF, whether the U.S. Congress approves it or not. Hey, what did he say? What did your president of the insolvent corporation say? I've got a pen and I've got a phone and I will bypass the legislative process to do what needs to be done. Well, is this being done for you? This is being done for the creditors, the bankers. The most important and far-reaching elements of the reform agenda, listen to this now, include a doubling of taxpayer resources available to the IMF. Member governments would have to supply twice as much taxpayer funding to meet their obligational quota under this new agreement. Even more important, the reforms would also dramatically reduce U.S. influence while handing more power to what propagandists refer to as the new emerging markets. In reality, emerging markets would continue to have no influence whatsoever at the powerful globalist institution. The dictators and governments that rule them, however, would be given far more authority to dictate IMF policy and decisions. My friends, the governments aren't ruling the IMF. The IMF is ruling the governments. Again, it's basic economics. If you are the creditor and I am the debtor, folks, who's giving the orders here? You know, I get a real big kick out of this thing about, oh, the debt ceiling, the debt ceiling. That's a dog and pony show for your entertainment. Folks, if you're the creditor and I'm the debtor, who's really going to set the terms of the loans and the debt's so-called debt ceiling? Are you going to walk into your bank and say, hey, you're going to give me a mortgage for another $100,000? You're the debtor. Do you think that's going to work out well for you? I don't believe so. The bank, you may request that. Fill this application out, Mr. Debtor. But you are not dictating policies as a debtor. And the United States government is an insolvent corporation, and if you've been watching this program, you understand that. And you even have the understanding when the United States government became a corporation. Organic Act of 1871. I invite you to look it up. We read it verbatim to you years ago. Chief among the regimes that would be empowered under the reforms is the communist dictatorship of China. Well, now we get into some interesting things here. But China has signed on with the Shanghai Agreement with the B.R.I.C.S, Brazil, Russia, India, and South Africa. That's where we get the acronym B.R.I.C.S, my friends, B.R.I.C.S, Brazil, Russia, India, China, South Africa. To radically expand the IMF's mandate, listen to their own language, to include a planetary currency. B.R.I.C.S nations, this is written by Michael Cohen and Ayla Akrapov. I apologize if I butchered the last name there. B.R.I.C.S nations plan new bank to bypass World Bank and IMF. Now you know why we're into the underbelly of Russia. Now this headline right here tells you why your sons and daughters, and you're going to pay with sweat equity and blood to protect the position of the International Monetary Fund. Folks, what did President Wilson tell us? The World War, World War I was about what? What did he write? Economic rivalry. What is this economic rivalry? Does history tell us we have the potential here of bringing a fourth World War III? Think of this. Do you think this is something new? This has been going on for 6,000 years. The Babylonians, the Byzantines, the Romans, go right through it all. Do you understand what I'm telling you? This is back to 1916 when President Wilson sat down and in the congressional record in this, actually, you know, it was actually an inquiry. It was actually an inquiry from the Congress. Boy, how would you, do you think we could get the President of the United States to do an inquiry with the Congress now? When 9/11 came up with George Bush, what did they do? They didn't trust they being the bankers, didn't trust George Bush so much, they kept it off the record. He never took an oath, and only Dick Cheney answered the questions. Why? Because George Bush was a cocaine-snorting, whiskey drunk in his earlier days. And UA from the Texas Air National Guard, I know you're saying, oh, this guy's a wacko. Look it up. Of course, when your daddy is the CIA director, things sort of get washed out. But think of what Mr. Wilson said about World War I. The World War was purely about economic rivalry, and we are staring the same thing in the face right now as we speak. And we have our agent provocateurs in the Ukraine, in Crimea. And folks, the people of Crimea, number one, have a history with Russia, but number two, guess what? The people voted on it. They requested the Russians. This isn't an invasion. This is aid. So why are we doing this? Because of economic rivalry. This headline tells you that story. BRICS, Brazil, Russia, India, China, South Africa are forming this new bank, and to what? To bypass the World Bank and International Monetary Fund. Your bosses. The biggest emerging markets are uniting to tackle underdevelopment and currency volatility with plans to set up institutions that encroach on the roles of the World Bank and International Monetary Fund. The leaders of the so-called BRICS nation, B.R.I.C.S, Brazil, Russia, India, China, South Africa, are set to approve the establishment of a new development bank during its annual summit that starts today in South Africa's city of Durban. My friends, this is March 26, 2013. Officials from all 5 nations say they also will discuss pooling of foreign currency reserves to ward off balance of payments of currency crisis. Now, who do you think those payments are going to? Any guess? Gee, they're going to the IMF. So not only are they looking at snipping the purse strings of the IMF, they're about to, we're going to see what happens here. They are about to, if they're successful, make them actually void. Make them a non-player. Folks, we have no cards in this game. And here's the reason why. I want you to think of what Russia and China has, number 2 and number 4 in the entire world, that they could dump on the market and this whole facade would collapse overnight. Any idea what that would be, my friends? That would be things known as treasury bills or debt bonds. All Russia has to do, not even China, and all these other nations also hold them, but not as high percentages. All they have to do is release them treasury bonds on the open market, and the whole thing plummets. And once China, once Saudi Arabia, and once Japan, the other big players, see this going on, and it starts to plummet, what are they going to do? They're going to cut their losses and dump it also. Think about it. This is where we are. This is why we're in the underbelly of Russia. The deepest rationale for the BRICS is almost certainly the creation of a new Bretton Woods-type institutions that are inclined towards developing the world. Excuse me, said Martin Davies, Chief Executive Officer of the Johannesburg-based Frontier Advisory, which promotes research on emerging markets. There is a shift in power from the traditional to the emerging world. There is a lot of geopolitical concern about this shift in the Western world. The BRICS nations, which have combined foreign currency reserves of well over 4.4 trillion and account for 43% of the world's populations, are seeking greater sway in global finance to match their rising economic power. They have called for an overhaul of management of the World Bank and the IMF, which, by the way, my friends, was created right here across the river in Bretton Woods, New Hampshire in 1944. That's when the bankers got together and said, hey, you know what? Why are we, actually it was 1913 with the Federal Reserve Act that they got a big piece of the pie. But after they brought on World War I, and they did. Why? What was World War I about? They had to sell it to the American people by having the Lusitania sunk. Do you remember we brought in the article, the warning, the advertisement from the Germans about the Lusitania? They actually named the ship when it was leaving, and they warned. And in the New York, I think it was the Post, this was years ago, we talked about how they create crisis. We actually brought in, read to you verbatim, a copy of it. The German government warning the American people, do not travel on this ship. Number one, it's carrying arms. Number two, it's being sent through the war zones, and the sea lanes of the war zones. And number three, it was meant to be sunk, just like the USS Liberty. Only the difference with the USS Liberty is they were more open about it when it got discovered. As President Johnson said, I want that GD ship to the bottom. My friends, we are staring at the potential of World War III. And it is about what? It is about economic rivalry. Now, this article was from March 26, 2013. This coming article is from this past January. BRICS Bank may challenge IMF. India's proposal to set up a bank of the BRICS nations, Brazil, Russia, India, China, and South Africa, will top the agenda at the summit group in New Delhi this March 28th. India believes a joint bank would be in line with the growing economic power of the five-nation group, and the bank would firm up the position of BRICS as the power player in global decision-making. The BRICS, now listen to this. This is the game, the shell game. And the bankers that are ruining this country do the same thing. Nothing's changing here, my friends. It's just, it's a power struggle. That's all. It's one corrupt organization with a flag versus another corrupt organization with a flag. This is gangs at a higher level, a more sophisticated technical level. That's what this is. And you're the pawns, on the board. The BRICS Bank does not need much capital for a start. Now you're saying to yourself, wait a minute, how the heck do you open up a bank without capital? My friends, our banks have no capital. None. As a matter of fact, we're on a 2% fractional banking system. And what do I mean by that? For every dollar of obligation, there's 2 cents backing it up. You know, when Alan Greenspan, during the hearings about Y2K, said, well, we estimate that only 2% of the American people will eventually take their money out of the banks. Guess what? He wasn't talking about the mindset of the American people. Only 2% might be concerned about taking their money out for potential bank failure if the computer system crashed. No, what he was telling the American people was that you only got 2 cents for every dollar of obligation. That's if everyone took their money, their cash money out of the bank, that's all there would be. 2% out of the whole dollar of obligation. Do you understand what I'm saying to you? This is what they're going to do. Same game, different owners. Different gangs with a flag. That's all this is. Listen to this. The BRICS Bank does not mean much capital for a start. Alexander Upkin, senior expert at the Moscow-based Center for Macroeconomic Analysis and Forecasting, tells IPS. What is more important is that the BRICS Development Bank presents a unique opportunity for the indirect investment of a central banking foreign reserves of the countries. Listen to this. This is the game, my friends. A BRICS bank could, for example, issue convertible debt, which would arguably be top-rated and can be bought by the central bank of all BRICS countries, and BRICS countries would thus have a vessel for investment risk sharing. What is this fella telling you? What he's telling you is that there is no money, number one. And what is convertible debt? What's convertible debt? Convertible debt, my friends, is the fact that what is in your pocket that you base your life on. Okay. Unfortunately, I am not going to have the time to get into all this, but I wanted to say one thing. I was talking to a viewer of the program, and I thank you, Scott, for your comments very much and your interest. And Scott said to me, you know, Tom, you should close with a short thought of words that you feel are important to you. And he came up with the word 20 words, maybe, with the number of 20 words. So I thought about that in the hectic week 2 weeks I had. And I felt that I wanted to close in the following manner. One, we are very, very thankful you take the time from your day to watch this program. But I'd like to close with you in 6 simple words to carry forth. And it's this. Seek truth. Obtain knowledge. And manifest kindness. My friends, we're very, very thankful that you watch our program, and we hope that you continue further with your research and education. Thank you for watching.
Got to read between the lines. Got to read.